Hey everyone, I've been on Patreon for exactly 1 week now, and I want to make sure everybody knows about it. There's some cool stuff over there, and if you think you might be interested, that's the address. It's in the description, and it'll pop up as a card at the end of this video. The option's there. Now, let's talk about Crocs. I need to address something right away. You may be under the impression that Crocs is shutting down. It's not true. Not long ago, they announced that they'll be shutting down their manufacturing facilities, which means that they'll no longer be manufacturing the shoes themselves, but instead, they'll be paying other people to do it. They're not going bankrupt, the shoes are still for sale. The only thing that's changing is they used to make 20% of the shoes themselves and outsource the other 80%, and now they'll be outsourcing 100%. To the average consumer, nothing has changed. I don't want to name anyone specifically, but you make a headline that says, Crocs announced it's closing the last of its factories, or Crocs no longer makes Crocs, people get the wrong impression. But even though they're not shutting down right now, I wouldn't say that they're doing well either. In fact, Crocs has experienced some significant ups and downs over the past few years. The company and the shoe itself is only 16 years old, and over that short time, there's been a rise, a fall, and a rise again. And maybe another rise or fall thrown in there. You'll see. But let's be clear about what we're referring to. Crocs is the name of the company that's famous for producing this shoe, which also goes by the same name. I know there's a degree of subjectivity to this statement, but I'll say it anyway. They're ugly. This is an ugly shoe. I mean, just look at it. And I know I'm not alone in my opinion. I'm confident in saying it's the popular opinion. Even if you are one of the people that thinks this is fashionable, I hope you can at least admit it's not conventional looking. But despite their appearance, they exploded in popularity. Let me try this. Think back to when you first became familiar with Crocs. Can you remember when you first saw them or heard the name? What year would you say it was? I'll take a guess, and say it was 2005, maybe 2007, right around there. If I got that right, don't panic, I didn't read your mind. I just looked at this graph, because that's when they exploded in popularity, and let me try to explain why. I think it was just a good product. I know, we've already established that it doesn't look great. I know it can be hard to see past appearances, but that's only one of many things to consider when judging a shoe. Let's go back to that first year in 2002. These were originally made to be used for boating. They're actually not made of rubber, they're made of what's called Cross-Lite, which is their secret trademarked material. It's odor resistant, moisture resistant, slip resistant, lightweight, easy to clean. It'll even mold to the shape of your foot. You might say, it's a perfect shoe for boating. Looking back at that sales graph, for their first year, their sales were so low comparatively, you can't even see the bar. Let me try to express how low they actually were by manipulating this graph. Do you see that little sliver of sales in 2004? Here's how big it is compared to 2002 and 2003. And then see 2003 on this graph? When we adjust it once more, we can finally see something show up for 2002. The total sales for that year were only $24,000. Here's why they were so low. It was their first year, but also they didn't debut the shoe until late in the year. It was in November when they brought 1,000 pairs of their new shoes to a boat show. They were a big hit and they sold out, and that was basically their sales for that year. From there, they became big in the boating community, but it turns out they fill other people's needs as well. People who stand up all day for work, they like the comfort that they offer. Athletes may wear something like this because they're easy to slip on and off when they change into their other shoes. Maybe if you work in a dirty environment, they're easy to clean. Kids like the variety of colors. And then as they became more popular, I think it became more socially acceptable to wear them. They're so ugly that they're cool, sort of a thing. That's how I would explain the rapid rise to popularity. It's a good shoe. It appeals to different people for different reasons, and it even started to become cool, or at least socially acceptable, to wear them. As an aside, I imagine this being the perfect product for the show Shark Tank. Imagine it's 2003, and they walk in with their new goofy looking shoe. Everyone makes fun of it at first, of course. But then when they demonstrate all the features and the uses, the sharks all start to show interest. Then they explain how they debuted them at a boating show in November of last year and are on track to exceed $1 million in sales this year and project that to go up to $13 million the next year. And then all the sharks start competing with their offers, and I don't know, somebody make a parody like this. Now, let's get to the fall. Things made quite a turn. I'll extend this revenue graph another 2 years, and you can see a definite decrease there, but I think there's better ways to show it. Here's their net income graph. It was actually negative for the first 3 years, but then turned positive in 2005 and just got better from there for the next 2 years, then took quite a sharp turn. That's a good visual representation of their rise and fall. Then their stock price tells the same story. They had a massive initial public offering in early 2006, hit some massive peaks in 2007, then fell pretty hard in 2008. The stock price was hanging around $1.20 for a while. All of these things suggest a pretty significant fall right around this time. Here's the reasoning behind it. For one, the obvious economic struggles. Most companies were affected negatively around this time. But for Crocs, there was another layer to it. To be honest, it was a good shoe, but their quick rise to popularity probably had a bit of a fad aspect to it. Now the fad was ending, and their customer base was contracting down to the people who want them for practical purposes. Plus, after experiencing years of increasing sales, they were expecting 2008 to be no different, so they got all this inventory ready to meet those high sales, but then the sales weren't high, and they had all this excess inventory that they were forced to sell for low prices. That would help explain the ridiculously low income for that year. Looking at it from another angle, do you know why they're called Crocs? They say, like a crocodile, it's because they're suitable for land and water, plus they're strong and long-lasting. The average lifespan for a crocodile is 70 to 100 years. The average lifespan for a pair of Crocs is probably less, but still pretty long for a shoe. In the previous 3 years, everyone bought their Crocs, and they were still good. It's not like there were new 2008 editions that everyone needed to have, so there was no need to buy new ones. It was just a perfect storm of issues, and they were in serious danger of going out of business. Now, let me just extend the sales graph all the way. It was followed by 5 years of increasing sales once again. 2014 was their highest year ever in terms of sales. Their income went back to being positive, and definitely some issues after that. Their stock price bounced back as well. The reason behind the comeback is, well, the economy improving was a big part of it, but on their end, their new strategy was to offer more variety. Start selling different looking shoes that offer the same comfort, along with sandals and other stuff. And it wasn't long before all these other offerings started outselling their traditional shoes. As I said before, one of their issues was everybody already had their shoes, and there was no reason to go out and buy new ones. So now there was a reason to do it. As part of this strategy, they started opening a bunch of new retail stores and kiosks to let the public know about all this new stuff that they were selling. A bold move if you ask me, but I think it all snowballed and the brand started becoming cool again, and by most measures, they made a respectable comeback. That was the rise, and the fall, and the rise again, but there's still more. After their second rise, they started a bit of a second fall, but then if you look at their most recent quarterly reports, it suggests good things. This company is just so shaky. I feel like they're always trying to find their balance. When they have an issue, they do correct it, but they correct it too far, or the correction causes new issues. They started offering a wider variety, which was good, but now their variety seems too wide, and they started to focus back on their core products. They started opening all of these stores, but then determined that online sales were the way of the future and started closing all the stores that they just opened. And plus, unlike most retailers, their sales were the worst in the fourth quarter around Christmas time because people don't wear them as much in the winter, which makes it almost pointless for the stores to exist a few months out of the year. Today, they're just downsizing in general. Like I said in the beginning, they're closing all of their manufacturing facilities. It's hard to know what the future holds for them, but here's how I see it. They keep trying to break into the general public, and the public just isn't having it. They'll catch fire for a little bit, but can't seem to maintain it, and going up and down so often like this can be dangerous. My advice would be to stop trying to appeal to everyone and just accept the role of a specialty shoe. Focus on boating and the nurses and the people who want it for practical purposes, and stop trying to make it a fashion statement. Have a small but strong customer base this and embrace it. Maybe at points, they've gotten bigger than they should have. Whenever they get too big, seems to be when the trouble starts. They're taking measures to downsize right now, and to me, it looks like it's for the best. Let me know in the comments, what do you think about Crocs? Both the shoe and the company that makes the shoe. Is it the ugliest piece of footwear you've ever seen, or is that being a little harsh? Are you one of the people who wears these? And if so, why? I'm guessing it's for practicality or comfort rather than fashion, but I can be wrong. Maybe there's a bigger market out there than I'm envisioning, and one day they'll finally be able to become one of the giant shoe brands. I did my best to explain all these rises and falls, but do you have any other explanations? And in general, why do you think this company is so unstable, and what should they do to stabilize it? I'd like to hear what you have to say. Thank you for watching.